welcome everybody to the fourth webinar and what has been a recurring event in 2020. Started before confinement and it seems to have been a good thing to start doing this. Hope you're all staying safe and everybody around you is healthy. So, and today I'm going to present an interesting use case for 4D Pro. Show you how it works and hopefully inspire you to use it in your developments in your application. So in doing that, I'm going to walk through some interesting portions of the Light Email Composer demo from 4D's GitHub. With this composer, you'll be able to create and edit simple emails to be sent via a MIME format. And now this, just to let you, just a caveat, this is not to replace any current marketing email that you may have. This is just a really light email composer for you to be able to generate emails from inside of your application and send it out and show you how, and give an interesting use case for 4D Pro, the technology around emails and the conversion from 4D Pro to emails, and it's also some subform work and also project mode. So we're going to get into that a little bit. We're going to get into all of that later. And again, this will be the first couple were really long webinars. This one's going to be a shorter webinar, usually about 35 minutes. And as always, if you have any questions that come into your head, feel free to ask in the Q&A. The Q&A is, we're doing something a little bit different this time. We are having a moderator moderate the Q&A section. So what we're going to do is all of your questions that you ask during the presentation, we will gather those, make a PowerPoint to present them to you, to present them to all the attendees and for future viewers on YouTube, and we'll respond to them live with what we can. So also all of this webinar will be made available on YouTube afterwards. So we're recording this and all of the demos are currently available on the 4D's GitHub. So without further ado, let's get started. So about me, my name is William Taylor. That's a picture from before confinement when the barbers were still open. So same guy, more 4D experience. So now I know more about 4D Pro. So so that's me. I'm a technical account manager in 4D US, and I head up the professional services team in the US. So that's about me. So you may be asking yourself, what is 4D Pro and how can I use it in my application? Now 4D Pro is an advanced word processing component that was developed by 4D for use inside your 4D application. It allows you to create professional automatically generated documents from templates, allows your clients and users to be able to modify those in a nice native to use format that looks like and everything that they're used to in a word formatting, word processing environment. It allows you to have complete control over your text areas, and I'll show you a little bit more about what I mean by that later. And it also, as today, as you'll see, it allows you to create emails. So again, this is a bespoke 4D Pro demo that was given by Ad Commensurensry in the keynote. So that, as you see here, we have a nice Word document that's well formatted, has all of the trappings of a Word formatting document, but it's in a 4D application. Same thing here. We have the same thing. And then here we have the demo that we're going to show today, which is the email client. So 4D Pro requires no installation, but you will need to have a 4D Write or 4D Write Pro license. So if you have a legacy 4D Write license, your 4D Write Pro should work. And if you have a 4D Write Pro license, this demo will work. And if you want to use this component or demo in your application, you will need the license. So, and any further questions about licenses can be asked to your account representative. So now, really quickly, I'm just going to get into the demo. So what we have here is so in this demo, sorry about that. It seems like I'm not sharing my screen. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see it. Make sure there's nothing. This is so this is a we're going to be using project mode with this. So project mode is it 40 V17 R5 and above feature. So yes, V18 feature. So so the question was, is this demo V18? And the answer is, in all intents and purposes, yes, it's V18. So what we have here is on the 4D depot, which is 4D's official Git repository. We have an application that was uploaded by Ad, or recently updated by Ad. What we have here is pretty much what you'd expect to see. You have your project mode, you have your project files. In here, you have your source, you have your 40 project you have your 40 project file, and you have your sources. And here you have a data file. You don't necessarily need a data file. This is just so that 40 doesn't complain when it opens up that it's looking for a data file. So this is just an empty data file. So no need to worry about there. So what I'm going to do here is I want to just quickly download this code. And in order to download the code, I can either download it in a zip file or open it in my GitHub desktop. I use GitHub desktop, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to let it open up in my GitHub desktop. And I'm going to want to first clone this repository. This repository is going to be cloned like that. And now I have my cloned repository. So I'm going to fetch it. And what I'm going to do is, this is my current repository. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reveal it in the Finder and show you what I'm looking at. Oh, I got a bunch of stuff going on. And let me close down some things while we're at it. Oh, shoot. I was halfway doing something last time. So I blew out a demo last time, so bear with me. Sorry about that, guys. Sure, we've all done this. Or there, I can look at the chat. This is V18 only, yeah. I would use V18. I'll be using V18 R3 for this demo, but it's V18 straight. So sorry about that. So I have my lightweight email composer here, and I've got the project. Oh, sorry about that. I've got the project file here. I've got the source file here, and I've got the data file here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the 40 project, and I'm going to open up the app. And this asks me to find the correct log file. So I'm just going to create the correct log file. And it'll just say to do it like that. And then what it does is it takes me through a setup process. And this setup process is what it does is it allows us to set up the SMTP settings. So the SMTP settings are important for a lightweight for this email client, because this is how these are the settings that will be used, that will be given to that will be used to authenticate with your SMTP server in order for you to be able to send out your emails. So yes, and we have the SMTP settings here. I could enter them all in, but that would give you my information, and I don't necessarily want to do that. I will just quickly hack it a little bit and copy one file into my SMTP settings. Oh shoot, I deleted it, didn't I? So into my SMTP settings, I'm just going to put in the JSON file that form actually generates. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to quit out of 4D, open it up again. project, and I'll open it up again. It'll walk me through the process, but this time, as you see, it doesn't ask me for any. It doesn't ask me for any SMTP settings because it already has them located in that JSON file. So now what we have here is a really nice looking, just really basic email client. And if we look here, we see that it's reactive to a certain point. You can grow it. And as you can see, the to and from are growing. All of the buttons stay the same. All of the, it has the same look and feel as you grow it. So that's cool. So I'm just going to quickly give you guys a little how to write a quick email. So I'll just send myself an email just to show you that it works. As you see here, this creates a little tokenized, it tokenizes my, it does something pretty cool. It tokenizes my email. And then I have that email tokenized, so I can just delete it. So it looks exactly like Outlook does when I hit enter. And I'll show you guys how that works later. That's really cool. And also, maybe you have noticed this or haven't noticed this. Email clients, as you type in the subject, the form that the window title changes. So right now it's an untitled. So I'm going to say, hi, Will. And as you see here, the window title changed. So that's pretty interesting. And then say, hi, how are you? You have this. And so I've typed in I've used in my 40 Write Pro area, I've typed in, and now I'm going to, and now I have this toolbar, this bespoke toolbar that will allow me to modify the text inside the 40 Write Pro area. So here I can say, I don't want to say hi. I can highlight, I can change the color, et cetera, and I can bold, and I can do that. So that's pretty cool, and I can just send the email, and that uses my SMTP settings to send the email appropriately. So if I open up my Outlook, I'll have my email there. Boom. That was from a test from before. So that's the email that I just sent. So pretty cool. So I can get rid of that now. So now I'm going to go back to my 40 demo. So I've showed you guys some of the interesting features, some of the features that I find interesting. Let me just quickly open this up again. The subject line, how it changes the name of the form, and the tokenization in the to. So I'm just going to quickly review how that's actually done. And that's actually done in some really slick ways. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up into design mode, in my application in design mode. And I'm going to first start off with a subform. So there's a form. The form is called email. And this has all of the forms that you have here. And the subject form here is actually a subform. So we have a subform inside of our main form, inside of our container form, that when you update the subform text, the text inside the subform, it updates the main form. How do we do that? So that shows a really interesting interplay between subforms and container forms and how we share information and how we trigger information between the two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how that works if you follow me. So I'm going to click here. So in here, I'm going to edit the form, and that's going to take me to the subform itself. And if we look at the property list here, property list of the subform, excuse me, you see the only event that gets triggered is the on after edit. So after the subject field text here is edited, so the object method will be triggered. So what we do is we want to look at the object method, and what we do is we call the subform container, and we give our custom event ID here, which is going to be minus 3001. That's user defined, and that will tell us when we want to update the window title. That it'll tell us when there's been a keystroke inside of the subject field. So remembering that 3001, if I go back to my form itself, the email form itself, and I click on the object method, I have, in the case of a form event code minus 3001, meaning that on keystroke has been triggered inside of the subform, I am going to edit the window title. So that is a really slick way to be able to trigger the container from the subform, I think. And it gives a really good use case of a really basic use case of how to use these form events and form events within a subform to trigger main things to happen in the main form. So hopefully that gives you some ideas about how that works a little bit more. So that's how it works. You trigger, you edit the subject field in the subject form. That will call the container with minus 3001, and then the container then manages the minus 3001 when necessary. Cool. And then, so another thing that was interesting was that I really found cool was the tokenization. So when I type JDH, for example, and I hit enter, it creates that little token. And I have a couple. So that's pretty interesting. And I can, and if I don't like this one, then I delete that person, and I can add another person, and I can delete as I wish, etc. So for me, that's really interesting. So let's have a look at to see more or less how that works. And I'm going to tell you more or less how that works because it's actually quite complicated. So what we have here, and then I'm going to show you how to debug in the code so you can really dig in yourself. So what we've got here is we have, again, a subform. That's how we were able to keep the form completely resizable and everything. So we have the subform. Make sure everybody can hear me. You have the subform here. And this is a subform. So if I go into and I edit the form itself, I see that this is my form. And what we have here, and the way that this is done is actually really slick. So add commensurately came up with this idea and how to do this. So what you have here is you have an invisible button. Okay. So visibility hidden. So there you have an invisible button. And what you're going to do is you type in, and that creates a text field. That creates some text in the field. You hit enter. What that will do is it will duplicate a button, take the text that was before the enter key, create a visible button with that text inside, resize the button so that it fits around the text so that it looks like a token, and then it will adjust the form.to input to the appropriate location right next to the button. So that's a lot that it does. So I can have a look here. We can have a look into the code itself. So that's more or less what it does. So if I open up the application and I go into the editor and I type at 4d.com, and before I hit enter, I'm going to hit the keys Control, Option, Command, right click, and I'm gonna enter into that email process. So I'm going to debug this process. So what this does is it calls the debugger on that process, and I just hit enter. So what it's going to pop into? It's going to pop into the form.to object field. Sorry, form.to object method, and it's going to It's going to unedited text. It's going to do some things. And then what it's going to do is it's going to call this, it's going to go into the resize to form. And it's here that does all of that magic. So what it does here is it's able to get all of the, it's able to, so yeah, what it does is it duplicates the button, gets the text, fills it in with the text, fills the button in with the text, resizes the button to make sure that it fits, and then it adjusts the form. So we have here, we have the core, it says the coordinates, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I would recommend doing that. So what, again, if you, I'm sure you all know this, but that's the way that I would debug it. So that way you can really try to figure out how it works. And then also you can see, you can learn how the backspace works, when the backspace works to delete the button, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that is done in a really slick way. Thanks to Add. So that's all well and good, and that's a nice demo. So those are the basic. Now what I'd like to do is kind of talk a little bit about how you can use this as a component if you would like to use this as a component, and you can play with components in project mode. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to build the application. And what I'm going to do is not compile, or the compile is not corresponding interpret code. You want to recompile it? Yes, I'm going to recompile the application. I'm going to build the compile structure. I'm going to build a component. I'm going to call it live. So I'm going to call it that is live, and I'm going to show you how you can use this component in a binary database or a project mode database. But I'll just show you how you can use it in a binary database actually. So I'm going to build it. I see it's successful. I don't necessarily need to see the log file when it's a success. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my documents. I'm going to go into GitHub. And here I have the build. Here I have my build. So that's the live version that you just saw me make. Okay. So what I'm going to do is create a new database. I'm going to call it, I'm going to make it on my desktop, and I'm going to call it webinar. Okay. And inside my webinar database, I'm going to show the package contents, and I'm just going to copy that over into the package contents like what we do always. So now I have my component in there. And I'm not sure if that shows up, so let me just restart interpret to get everything going. And now I have the same editor settings. And it asks me to set up my SMTP settings like before. So yes, cancel. And then I'm able to then set those up. Let me just go back, set those up really quickly with that package content, SMTP. See, I don't have the one.json file. It didn't get pulled over. So if I open this up again, this binary database, you'll see that I have access to all of my, to the email editor in all of its glory. So that's what I wanted to show with the demo. Oh, and I guess another thing that I wanted to show a little bit is going into the build itself of the component. You have the component, and you have the 40 database live component. Oh, shoot. So what we have here is, go back to the GitHub. When I build it out, but yeah, I should have copied this over, but this is the 4DZ, and that's the compiled and zipped version of a component. And for more information about how you use components in how you use components in project mode and how components are created in project mode, I invite you to look at developer.40.com. So let me just quickly go back to my slides. Okay. Sorry about that. I was just looking at the questions, making sure I'm not, everybody can hear me. Well, one thing that I forgot to mention, thank you, someone mentioned this, is I forgot to mention how the application gets changed from a 40 Write Pro document into an email. So what that does is, let me just quickly go over that. Sorry about that. Completely forgot about that. So what this does is when you hit send, so this is my form, right? And when I hit send, and that's going to call this object method. And this object method is going to get all of the parameters from pretty much from my JSON object, from the JSON object in 1.json. And then I'm going to call write post send mail. And in this write pro send mail, that's where the application takes all of the information from the email parameters and the 40 Write Pro object, and it exports, uses the Write Pro export variable into MIME HTML, and then it converts that MIME text into, an email. And then what I do, or into an email object. And then what I do is then I call then I build the email object, and then I use the, where is it? SMTP. And then I use the, and then I build everything up here and I send it using the SMTP new transporter command. So what it does is it gets all of the information that it needs, all the SMTP information for the SMTP server. It gets all of the information about the document itself and anything that it needs to be done, like with, if it, for example, needs to be sent with high priority, like we see here, it's high priority. And then it builds the email and then it sends it using the SMTP new transporter command. So sorry, I forgot to completely mention how all that works. But if you want to learn more about how all of that works, then you can dig it up. And I would recommend really digging into this and figuring out how it all works. It's done in a really clean, nice way, and it's really well documented. So thank you. Sorry about that. Another. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to go pop back to my slides. And if you want to learn more about 40 Write Pro, I invite you to visit the documentation here. Also, the blog is a great resource, and the blog is always showing the latest and greatest features of 40 Write Pro. With every new R release, there's always new blog posts and always new features in 40 Write Pro to be able to be used, or not just features, use cases that necessarily haven't been thought of. kb.40.com, that's the tech support team in the United States maintains this content, and it allows for the developers to get really hot tech notes for partners and tech tips for use of 40 Write Pro documents. And then, as always, the new forum is discuss.40.com, and we invite you to ask all of your questions about 40 Write Pro there. And then about project mode. So I talked a little bit about project mode, and this this application uses project mode. So if you want to figure out project mode, I invite you to look at, instead of looking at the doc, look at developer.40.com. That contains all of the new documentation for big new features like project mode. And it really goes into detail and it discusses how it all works, and it should answer all of your questions. Also, the blog is a great location for information, kb.com, project mode. You can get your application there, copying methods to and from another database, et cetera, et cetera. And then discuss.40.com, if you do have any very technical questions that you want to ask, that is, again, the location where all the engineering team looks for any questions from you guys, the developers. So we maintain it and we read it daily. So please ask your questions there and you'll get an appropriate response and you'll help the community as well. So, okay. Be safe, everybody. Take care, and we'll talk soon.